Hello and welcome back to the Respect the Beers Bet podcast. We're back again for the second week of the season, or third week of the season, sorry. And this week we're going to be talking about what's happened over the last game week. So obviously we had the Respect the Beers derby over the weekend, and we're going to delve into the transfer market and who's done well, who hasn't, and we'll probably end up going back to what clubs are run well and what clubs are run badly. I'm going to throw straight over to Mixer, and I'm looking forward to this bit. So, Mixer, how do we do this weekend?
Pretty much like last week. We only got one right, if we even got one right last or the week before. The only one we got right. Yeah, the only one we got right was Sean was with the Leicester Burnley game. He was bold and went for Barnes, and he was very happy about it. So Barnes was the only scorer. So it's 0-0, 1-1. The 2 1s are for Sean and John. So that's how we are.
Lovely. I'm fuming, by the way.
It's easy to round up at the moment.
There was a lot of goals in the weekend as well, wasn't there? So we had a chance,
wasn't there?
It was like 50, 60 something goals, weren't there, across all the games? It was like, well.
Obviously, the rest weren't in favour with Fernandez. Fernandez.
I'm fuming because Mane scores 2 goals the week after I pick him, and then I pick Richarlison, and Everton score 5 goals, and Richarlison can't score.
I have to confess, I thought you were pretty unfortunate because I didn't actually see that game, and I checked the score like way after the game and saw Everton hit 5 as a headline.
Yeah, I thought it's got to be. That's what I thought as well.
It's definitely come in here. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
me neither. Not happy.
Why do you reckon there's been so many goals? Because the last 2 game weeks have been a joke. Obviously, the 5-2 result this week. There was a 4-3, a 4.
Two 5-2s this week.
Yeah, and 2 4-3s this season. Do you reckon it's because there's no crowd, or do you reckon it's just?
I think it's the defences.
I think fitness level to play a big part.
I think fitness might be a good reason. I mean, it'll be interesting to see when the goals normally come and what are the rates of goals later on in games. That might be a good correlation, but
yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, it could also be the defenders. There are not that many good defenders around anymore. If I look at the Man United backline or that Spurs backline, even the Chelsea backline, do they look that good? Not sure.
But you can't find many teams that you go somewhere that aren't going to concede it. You think I can see there's no team that's got a solid back four that won't concede.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I agree with that actually. I can't think of anyone. I mean, even Liverpool, you can get Liverpool, can't you?
Well, look at what Leeds did to them.
You can get at Liverpool. I certainly think there's teams that will as well this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, one of them teams that normally has a good back line is Burnley, and I was sort of shocked by the way they performed with Leicester obviously opening them up and scoring 4 against them. They're one of the teams that you would normally put in that category. And as well, a quick shout out to Brighton, who I know was watching this game together, and after Newcastle's first game against West Ham, we all thought, Steve Bruce has got a good season going here, but
it's true, didn't we?
Brighton turned them over.
Brighton played so well.
Yeah.
We obviously, like you said, we watched the game together after the Spurs game, and I think was it Lamptey, their right back, just showed how classy he was, and gave their defence an absolute terrible time. And I think he's such a good prospect for the future. Obviously, I think it was from Chelsea they bought him from. I just think he's going to be such a good player for him.
Yeah,
we touched on this last season, didn't we? We touched on how good. How well coached Brighton look. Like we were all, I think we were looking at him thinking, okay, you can't believe he got rid of Chris Hughton. That was terrible.
Yeah.
He must have a brand of football because it's happened to him twice now, hasn't it? Newcastle and Brighton. So he's obviously good at something, maybe being a bit solid, but he's not necessarily good to team or managers or owners of clubs. They seem to think, okay, brilliant. How do you get to the next level? And it looks like this guy has brought them on to the next level. Actually, they're playing really good football. I actually fancy them to win this weekend. Actually,
I thought you was about to say win the league for a second.
I tell you what, if they did, that would be calling or one. Yeah, that'd be bigger than Leicester, I think.
Yeah, I think that'd be huge, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I know. I fancy them to actually go and win this weekend. Who have they got this weekend? Got a big
Man United.
Yeah, Man United. Yeah, actually, I wouldn't be surprised. I fancy them to at least get a result at home to Man United. They're going to be a very tough team to play against, and he seems to have got them.
And that moves us on quite well actually to the next topic is Man United, how they done against Palace. There's been a lot of talk about their transfer activity or lack of transfer activity, and I didn't see the game personally, but from what I have seen of the replays, obviously the refereeing decisions, VAR and stuff like that, it couldn't happen to a nicer team in Man United, I suppose. But there's things there that obviously need addressing. But
I watched the game myself, and I thought the defence was absolutely awful. They couldn't handle Zaha, and I think John touched on it in our WhatsApp group, saying he couldn't believe their team selection.
I was going to say with this because I've actually we tend to, between the four of us, we've got our Respect the Beers Facebook page, and if you're watching this now or if you're listening to us now, the odds are you've probably found us through that Facebook page at the moment. And there was a comment that I put under an article on I think it must have been Match of the Day's Facebook page, and it was talking about the game and so on, and I'd made a comment about I couldn't believe how Solskjaer had set up. And it drew the sort of typical comment of, oh, well, yeah, of course, you must know what his team train like and how fit his players are and so on. But you've got to look at the way that team was set up and say, if you look at the team that you're playing, did they set that team up with a lack of respect for what Crystal Palace could offer?
Because I could see
that right-hand side, for me, was not set up in a way where it was going to effectively deal with...
But it wasn't just the right. It wasn't just the right hand side. It was all over the pitch.
I'm telling you now, the Man United, the way Man United is run is it what's the saying? Is a camel? Is it? Yeah. So you know the saying, a horse is a camel designed by committee. No, sorry, a camel is a horse designed by committee. Sorry, that's the saying. Yeah. So Man United, I've been saying this for years, even when Mourinho went there, even when Van Gaal was there, they've got people in the background. The politics is obviously really, really bad. They've got different people making different decisions. They won't let one person have their vision. And when you do that, you have this just disjointed club. That squad is obviously unbalanced. They're not picking, and they're not going into the transfer market with any precision. Why they're making Jadon Sancho their top signing?
Exactly.
It makes no sense. They should be going for defenders,
central defenders.
Yeah. And exactly. That's where they're struggling, right? They weren't struggling for goals.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For me, that's where they are, and I think they're really poorly run. I think there's a lot of politics. You see this with big corporations as well, right? They've had to go through their big, start of the let's say life cycle. They start doing brilliant, and then obviously you get some politics that goes in. I think that's happening to Man United right now. They've had a great spell, and I just don't. I can't see them unless they have a massive change in the way that they're set up from top to bottom. I can't see them getting back to where they were.
I mean, look how they ended last season. They got Fernandes in January, and they looked like they were really building on something. We was all tipping them for the top 4, I think. But now they just, I mean, it's only they've only had one game, so it could just be a fitness level but unless they sign a couple of players I'm not sure about them, to be honest.
I don't even think it's a couple of players. I think
really.
The Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, what did he do to deserve that role? I mean, he was at Cardiff. He got them relegated. He did some stuff in Norway. I don't know what else he did to deserve that role.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, if they go in and bring Pochettino in there, he'll fail as well. There's no going to let him, because Pochettino is going to want to have full control as well, and they won't give that to him.
No. And that's the club's fault, not the managers or the players.
I agree with you on that, because I think you're spot on in terms of the fact that Pochettino will come in. He'll want to run the club top to bottom his way, and like you say, there are too many outside forces that are a part of that. Speaking of that, is that something that I've heard. Now, I've not particularly researched this myself, so I'm not going to put it down as gospel. But something that I've heard, is their kit Nike or Adidas?
Adidas.
It's Adidas, right? There's a rumor that part of their kit deal involves the fact that Adidas provide something in the region of 70 to 100 million per year, which is essentially a go and get like a Galactico style signing, which would make a lot of sense for their transfer policy.
Right, I see what you mean.
There's areas of their team that need fixing, but actually we'd rather you went out and signed someone who's marketable. So suddenly, like Jadon Sancho has become and I think there's that. And I obviously look. I'll probably get peppered for this by the 20 odd followers that listen to this. But I mean, it's no, I can't say that that's gospel and that I know that to be a fact, but that is something that I've heard, which would make a lot of sense when you look at the way the club is run.
Yeah, I think it's very knee-jerk, isn't it? Because they're looking around and they're seeing Chelsea buying these top stars. Obviously, Spurs have gone and got Bale, which is still up in the air whether it's a risk or not. Everton are even going out and buying players. Liverpool have bought a couple of players. They're probably looking around, well, the fans more than the club, and thinking, why are we not doing anything? Because they obviously need improving.
Yeah, but Chelsea did it with precision, didn't they?
Yes,
they've done it. They've done it differently. Exactly. They've said, okay, we need these positions. Man United, I mean, the money that they're going to have to probably pay for Jadon Sancho. I mean, you guys seem to think, I don't know if you still think it, but a couple of, let's say 2 podcasts ago, I think you guys were saying, we think that Jadon Sancho will end up at Man United.
I don't.
I still do. I still think it will happen. It'll be a deadline day panic buy.
No, well, in my opinion, I still don't. I don't think it is now. I don't think he'll go.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, on that front, the fact that they're going for that's going to cost them 110, 120 million. But the problem if it's a panic buy, it'll be 110.
Yeah, but they don't need that. They don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. He'll improve the team. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he won't, but it won't. Their problem is centre midfield and defence.
Yep.
That's what they need.
Yeah. Centre midfield, I think they're all right in centre midfield, to be fair.
All right, well, all right, definitely 100% the defence.
Oh, centre back and left back, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I would also be a little disappointed if I was a Man United fan because you had this McTominay come through last year, and he's and you've got all these also young prospects coming like James. Coming through.
James.
And he was. I'm not. I don't know whether he's good or if he's that good or not. But he was being touted as this speed demon winger who was, really, And then all of a sudden it was. So then we got to understand: are these actually good players in the first place? Then, if they're always going to be replaced.
I'll be honest. I've always. I mean, from what I've watched of Daniel James, I'm not even convinced he'd get into the Saints team, let alone if he's good enough to be in that Man United team to be. And I'm not even saying that to draw like a sort of humorous reaction. I genuinely believe it's a guy where he's got an attribute, whether he's the complete package. I don't think he's anywhere near the complete package as a player.
That's fair.
But I think he's kind of like a player that is essentially rated based on a particular attribute. Great FIFA player, essentially.
I think it's another one that's been thrown in the deep end, really. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about Ali this weekend. I think he's one that done it for a couple of years, rather than James just done it for a couple of months. And I think that left back Brandon Williams was the same. He came in and everyone was like, "Oh wow, do United need to go and buy a left back?" And then he had a few months and then he went down the drain. McTominay was the same. It's just the constant pressure, and these kids, I say kids, not to sound patronising, but they can't deal with that pressure. You need to edge them in gently,
Young players are also not very consistent as well. And if you want someone like Man United, if you want to have a club like Man United, let's think about what made Man United successful. You're thinking you've got your Roy Keanes, who are in there, who pretty scary actually. I can imagine I'd be pretty frightened of Roy Keane. You had Steve Bruce type characters. I mean, you had proper leaders. If you think back, Schmeichel, I imagine he would have been quite a vocal leader. Gary Neville, we've seen his mentality.
Giggsy
as well
was a captain.
But that generation of Neville, they grew up underneath those leaders, and sort of that by osmosis that sort of went through. But I think that they had generally a solid structure to their team as well, right? That team didn't often change a lot. Which I know with the demand on the amount of fixtures these days makes it a bit different, but you go season by season, there'd be one in 5 seasons, for example, it would look drastically different where Fergie would do a bit more of a rebuild. Yeah. But the core of that team really stayed together for a lot of that.
That's the main thing I was about to say. They always had a core, didn't they? They've always got a base to build from. They had 2 good centre-halves every year and 2 good central midfielders every year. And then the rest around, he could switch in, switch out. He always used to, obviously, even Ronaldo and Beckham were sort of expendable at points because...
They had that spine.
Yeah, exactly.
No one was bigger than the club as well, right? Exactly. I think Ferguson made sure that was definitely the case. We had this discussion earlier on, right? It's a shame we couldn't get into it properly because I wasn't able to really get into it. We were talking about Mourinho. So Mixer was saying Mourinho doesn't coach he doesn't coach players. You look at that Man United team. What Mourinho does do is he instills a psychology, right? A strong mentality, but you can't do that on weak minds, right? And then I think you're going to start to see that Mourinho is now starting to figure out who's got the weak mind, who hasn't, and he's obviously trying to remove those players from this squad and bring in players who fit his philosophy. If you look at that Man United team right now, I would probably say I don't think Pogba's got that mentality. I would say Fernandes has got that mentality.
Yeah.
I actually can't think of many players in that squad that would have the strong will like Giggs, Beckham. I mean, actually Beckham, he actually was very, very dedicated, right? He led by example as well. Your Roy Keanes, Michael Carrick as well. He was consistent as ever. He would play Rio Ferdinand, Vidic. Can you even believe? Actually, Chelsea, I think a lot of it's to do with a very weak mentality.
But not to sound like Graham Souness though, but like a lot of the players you just listed off there are what I would call professionals. Some of the players that you've talked about not having that mentality are, for lack of a better term, Alex Hunters. So they're all playing. They're all playing like the what was it called on FIFA? That career mode type thing, the journey or something.
Yeah, the journey.
It's but you do feel like there's a lot more Alex Hunters.
I didn't get that reference.
No, but it's like you know, like Alex Hunter. It's the whole sort of like it's like the movies, the storybook kind of football. It's the Instagram footballers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I mean, it's a great point that there was an article on the BBC today talking about Jesse Lingard and some other players that they just can't get rid of.
Apparently, it was Rojo, Lingard.
Yeah, Rojo. What happened to him? He was supposed to be amazing, wasn't he?
Who they were? Jones. They can't get rid of.
Smalling's apparently training alone now because he's going to either Inter or Roma.
But he was on loan at Roma last season, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think Inter have now come in and rivaled like for his signature.
They also see something no English person can.
So that must mean that's what's his name, that Spurs signing Skrna. That must be hotting up.
His replacement. Ooh.
I gotta say, Smalling, well done, by the way. Well done to Smalling, an English player going abroad.
Yeah, doing well.
Exactly. And
fair play to him. I mean, still.
You must get away with murder in the box on corners in Serie A. That's all I can say. If he's doing well over there, you must get away with absolute murder.
But I guess, considering his form, isn't it a bit of a travesty that he's not making that England team? You know, he was one of the best defenders in well, I can't say he was one of the best, but from the reports that I'm reading, he's had a very, very good season. And we can't say the same for Eric Dyer. And we can't say the same for.
What can he do then? Is the question.
Yeah, but then if he doesn't fit in his system, I mean, they might.
Tyrone Mings arguably had a better season than Smalling, I'd say.
I 100% agree. I one of my players for last season.
You can't say that. Why would you say that? He's been playing for Aston Villa. He's been playing for Roma. Top player.
So did Roma win anything last season?
Games. Yeah, but he played at a higher level.
But why is Roma a higher level than Villa? They're both in the top league, you know.
Hang about. Roma playing like Champions League football.
Roma with history. Roma. Come on, Mixer.
So you had that Leeds. Hang on. You had that Leeds player getting in the England squad, and no one batted an eyelid.
I did.
Yes, but I think you've got to look at the nature of the fixtures and think about the fact that was at the end. Well, that was at the very end of a pre-season that had not really been a pre-season. And I think there's a lot of players that would probably normally be in that spot Calvin Phillips took that probably weren't ready.
And by the way, Tyrone Mings, I've got nothing against him getting to that squad. He had a great season.
He should have been there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do agree. But it wasn't a question of that. Did Smalling make it?
No.
Because if that's a travesty, I think. That's a real travesty. And that's the Premier League bias, I guess.
I think he had a bad injury though, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
I think so.
I hope so.
Right.
I hope that was the case. Because it would be really
a bit harsh.
if he was. But I hope that was the case. Is what I should say.
Yeah.
Quick mention of the England squad. I've not personally seen anything from last night, but where do people stand on Pickford's clangers that were made? Has anyone seen them? Apparently, Jordan Pickford was subbed on for the second half of Everton's game yesterday and almost single-handedly made it competitive again.
Yeah, he had a mare. Yeah. He's always likely to do it, isn't he? That's the way he plays. I think it's sort of in his nature. It's a bit like Lloris does it sometimes. You know, when they try and play the ball out and stuff, and you just got to put your foot through it. But again, I think it goes back to I think we said it a few weeks ago. He hasn't let Southgate down, so I don't think Southgate will drop him. But I can see all the reasons why he would. So
I could see this also being a potential I think David James did it once, right? He was on the bench. He didn't warm up properly. He didn't do all of the things that he was supposed to do because he didn't think he was going to be playing. He came on and had an absolute mare. And I wonder if that's the lesson that Pickford's just learned. Oh, there's no way I'm coming on for this game. This isn't for me. The thing I would say for England is Pickford's probably the only goalkeeper that's shown that he can play football with his feet, has got really good distribution, and I think it's a really big part for.
I don't want to go back. Sorry, I don't want to go back to what we said about England, but the problem with saying he's never let him down is, does that make him complacent for Everton? In the sense that if he knows he's going to start for England at the Euros, does that make him go, well, no, I'm not saying he would never try. I'm not saying that, but does that not make him complacent? Thinking,
no,
England's...
because he would lose his place. If he wasn't playing regularly, he would lose his place.
I don't think Ancelotti would allow that to happen, to be fair.
Yeah, I know, but I just think that you can't keep, like, we keep saying, I know we're talking about England, I've changed the subject a bit, but we're talking about England, how he hasn't made any mistakes for England, but maybe that's making him complacent.
Well, we elaborate.
Yeah. No one can really...
Elaborate. What do you mean? Why would it make him complacent?
Well, so if you know, I think me and Sean have spoken about this a lot, for not just about this player in particular, but a lot of players. But if you know you're going to play week in, week out, or every time England internationals come about, does it not make you complacent, thinking I haven't got to try as much? Or,
no,
hang on. Or there's less competition. I think, I'm going to be England's number one. As long as I don't come out the team, I'll be all right.
Yeah, not necessarily, right? Because there are loads of games where you're going to try out new goalkeepers. If another goalkeeper comes in and shows that he's got similar attributes to Pickford, if Pope, if you're able to start playing football with Pope, and Pope can distribute like Pickford and is more consistent as a goalkeeper, Gareth Southgate's going to be
they should get the chance. So it doesn't seem like they're getting any chance.
Well, they'll get a chance in friendlies for sure, and and at the end of the day, if Pickford's not making mistakes for you, why would you change? If it's working, why would you change it?
But I'm sorry, he keeps making mistakes for Everton, and I'm not being funny. With respects to a lot of the teams we've been playing recently, they're not at a level where they're coming at you. Like, there's a lot less for Pickford to do.
Yeah, but
in the England games, I think it's unfair that
it sends a bad message out, though, because to other players, I think that you're willing to drop someone on form for another club. I get what you're saying about the complaint.
If you ask me, for a goalkeeper, it's different. It's very different for a goalkeeper, because you talk about a striker, a midfielder, a defender. Clubs in England can play a different way, whereas a keeper, one of the fundamental parts of a goalkeeping is their goalkeeping ability. So if you keep making mistakes in that sense,
yeah, you'd be worried. Well, Southgate would worry, right?
Forgetting about distribution for a second, but as a goalkeeper, as stopping shots, as collecting the ball, as commanding your box, surely if you keep playing badly for your club, it should affect your England or your international position.
Well, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but what I'm saying is, as a manager, Southgate set his stall out as being loyal to the players that have done a good job for him. So
I'm not saying I think.
I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying that that's his approach. He's loyal to his players, and I think that's why he gets a lot.
I do respect that.
Do you remember?
Respect him, so.
It could also be why. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you remember when Greece won the Euros? And they went and won. I think it was 2002. I think it was, or 2000 or
2004.
2004. Thank you. And one of the big reasons why they won, well, firstly, their manager had drilled them. They were drilled. None of those players were really first team players for their clubs as well. Very, very few of them were there. I think even one of their best performers was playing at Bolton, if I remember correctly. Little bald guy.
Giannakopoulos, wasn't it?
It might have been, little bald one. Yeah, I mean he was quite good actually.
Stelios, that was his name.
Stelios.
Giannakopoulos, that was it. I think that was correct. Yeah.
So so when one of the things that he said was actually, my players were fresh. The manager obviously he drilled them. He drilled them for about 4 years because they'd almost knocked England out of the qualifying of the previous tournament with that famous David Beckham free kick.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things he said was, my players were fresh. They hadn't gone through a grueling season. A lot of them were from the bench. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to the system that you have. But at the same time, you're going to get a little bit worried if you're going into, let's say, March, April, May, and you've got your tournament coming in July, and you see Pickford making clangers, you would be a little bit worried. But I think you should lose it in the shirt. I think that's the.
Yeah, again, it's a fair point. It is a fair point.
Depends on the manager. It depends on the manager.
Yeah, it depends on the manager, definitely. Right, we're going to get straight into the bet, and we're going to go through all 4 of us straight away this week.
Okay.
I'm going to go through the fixtures now and let you guys know what games we're doing. So it starts on Saturday this week, and the first game is Brighton Man United. Next is Palace against Everton, West Brom against Chelsea, Burnley against Southampton. Then on to Sunday, we've got Sheffield United against Leeds. Quite a big derby, that actually. Spurs against Newcastle, Man City against Leicester, and West Ham against Wolves. And then finally on the Monday, we've got Fulham against Villa, and a cracking game to finish it all off with Liverpool against Arsenal on the Monday night. Guys, who's first this week?
That'd be me.
It's John.
Okay, right. John, who are you going for?
Right, I'm off to the Hawthorns for my one. I'm looking at it going off of my usual theory. I'm going with the team that's leaking goals, and then I'm actually looking to, like in this instance, at a guy that I think is due a goal. After a big money signing over from the Bundesliga, so I'm picking Timo Werner for Chelsea.
That's wrong. That is not fair. But okay.
Is that your choice by any chance, Mixer?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Sorry, Mix.
He hasn't really got going yet, has he? So is that the reason sort of behind?
I think most strikers, right? Like you go a couple of games without a goal anyway, and you're itching really to get into your next game. I do think if he's going to if he's going to have a good season, he needs to hit the ground running sooner rather than later. Just looking at West Brom from what I've seen of them, don't necessarily look they don't look exactly adverse to conceding goals. So
I think it's a safe bet, isn't it? This one. Yeah.
It is. I feel like
here we go again.
Actually, that wasn't tongue in cheek. By the way,
I could tell by your tone of voice it wasn't a dig for once.
Yeah.
So, I'm cool with that.
I'm happy with the choice you made last week. You went for it. Didn't work. Go back to basics.
We've got to think about the jackpot here because we're third week in and we've got 1 out of 4 of both weeks running. We need to get a little bit closer than that if we're not going to win it. So I'll go Timo Werner and over to you boys.
Okay, right. Let's put the pressure on now because you've just said, we need to get the jackpot, and I've gone sort of out. Actually, I've gone
last week, mate. You had it last week.
I've literally gone far left again, and I'm gonna go for a left winger with Wolves against West Ham. I'm going for Daniel Podence. It's another one very similar to Harvey Barnes. I watched him against Man City, and he had a couple of good chances against Man City. They seem to a lot of their play seems to come through him. So I'm thinking that if he's not going to score against Man City, he's got definitely a better chance against West Ham. A bit like what you said, John, about West Brom. They're conceding goals at the minute, West Ham. So I'm going for Daniel Podence and hoping to
from Wolves.
From Wolves, yeah.
He
reminds me very, very much of Eden Hazard. Obviously, I'm not comparing him level wise yet, but I feel like he's a very good prospect for Wolves, and obviously with them letting Jota go, they've obviously got some confidence in him as well. So
he looked quite tricky, didn't he? He looked all right last match. I was actually going to go for Jimenez, and I was going to go for I fancy Traore because last year Traore caused them lots of problems hanging up. I expected to see that again. It just seems like one of those teams that he'll enjoy playing against, and I was going to think maybe Jimenez would profit from that, but.
Unlucky.
Is it over to Adam next, or is it?
It is Adam next. Yes.
Okay, Adam.
Go right, Adam. You got to think on your feet now.
I know, and that I think will carry on with Heung-min Son.
We're not talking about him, I'm afraid. That's a banned word on this podcast.
I just think, I was watching it. I mean, obviously I'm a Spurs fan. I was watching him against is it Plovdiv last week in the. He missed a couple of sitters. You can see he didn't have that confidence. I think he'll be extremely confident against, now after scoring those 4 goals against Southampton.
So he had a practice match Sunday, didn't he? God, blimey.
Not guaranteed that we'll win. That Spurs will win. I wouldn't say by far because you don't know what's happening with this team because they realistically only played about good football for about 45 minutes last week. but expect Son to be, the main focal point, let's say. So I'm going to go for Heung-min Son.
Nice. And Mixer finally?
I am going for someone that scored last week. I am going for someone who, like I say, scored last week. I'm going for Danny Ings.
Okay.
I think he's going to score against Burnley. They're playing them on Sunday.
No, Saturday night.
Sorry, Saturday night. My apologies. And
Sorry.
I just think, they've. I think he's been in rich form, even though I don't mean to say this, but even though they've lost a couple of games, he's scored in both of them. I think
he's looked sharp. He has looked sharp,
and his goal against Spurs was
beautiful.
Was a brilliant goal.
That first one was one of the most finely taken goals you will see all season, I think.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going for.
He's a handful, isn't he? He's a handful. I remember when Liverpool signed him, I thought, this guy hasn't got it. But you could tell it was definitely because of fitness. Because since he's gone and played regular football, he's been really good.
Yeah, and I've said since we've signed him, my only question mark when we first got him was it's not the quality that I doubt, it's the fact that, and in the first season he was with us, we did get that kind of like, he's out for like 6 to 8 weeks here, and I just thought, we're just gonna have to live with it. We're inevitably gonna have to go through spells of a season where he's not available. But last season he got his fitness together, and it was the best season he's ever had by a distance, wasn't it? So
he does look he looks like a powerhouse. He looks like a powerhouse. I'm pretty sure he's bulked up over the last couple of years, because I don't think he was like that at Liverpool. No, but he's like a proper old-fashioned target man, like in the mold of Kane, let's say, right? Very similar to how he plays, right? So very much in the box striker, hold the ball up. He's got good with his feet as well, though.
I think what's helped him out, and I'm not sure how John's probably got a better idea than I have on this, but I think Che Adams has helped him massively, because Che Adams is so busy behind him.
Yeah, he does all the hard graft.
He takes defenders sort of away from Danny Ings. They're both pretty busy players.
About Sunday.
We can go on to that.
You want me to tell you the odds
we're happy to talk about
it?
Yeah, I mean,
So the odds for the 4 goal scorers is 37.12 to 1, and for the 5-fold it will return £190.58.
That'll do.
Yeah.
So I'm placing that bet now.
That's similar amount to our last win, bar a few pence here and there, isn't it?
That must be all from Sean's pick, because our picks are pretty safe.
7-2 mine was.
Yeah, our ones are
nice.
Yeah,
ours are all more or less. So
well, if you like your omens, Sean's gone for another 7 o'clock Sunday kickoff. So
yes, that's true.
You know the only omen though. You know the only omen that's really worked. The only omen that's really worked, Chris Wood.
Listen, again, he's playing against Saints this weekend, so you never know.
I didn't know that.
This might have been the week to go for it.
Yeah.
We should wait till we all go for someone mad and then go for Chris Wood.
Yeah, to talk about Southampton a bit more, they've been linked with someone today who I think would suit you down to the ground. Tom Davies, what do you think about that one?
Tom Davies. I've heard a lot about. I've heard quite a bit over the last 2-3 days. Now, I have to confess, I've not seen enough. I've not seen enough of him to say, yeah, definitely. I've got no reason to think that's a bad idea. I mean, it's clearly the area that we need to strengthen. It's like if there's one that we need to strengthen, it is central midfield. He's looked like a bit of a. I'm trying to find a polite way of saying this for the pod. What we would normally refer to as a yes, he's got a bit of a nasty streak in him from what I've seen. Like, he does a lot of the nasty stuff.
He does. Yeah, he does.
And it's we need a bit of that. Particularly, I think we're quite soft through the middle.
To take the booking sort of thing.
No, we've got Romeu for that, as you saw on Sunday. 5 minutes
early on.
Did you see him take out Højbjerg in like the first 5 minutes?
Yeah, but this is what I mean. This is my annoyance with Romeu, is that he will make a challenge like that 5 minutes in. It's like.
And you have to take him off.
You don't have to make it and he does this all. He's a liability in that respect. Like he tends to give away a lot of senseless fouls, and a lot of the time it's like that sort of get stuck in there. So it's like there's get stuck in there, and there's think about it. And also, there's not a thought process behind what he does, right? Do you know what I'm saying?
That I think. I mean, I could be wrong about it. So I think he went off in quite early on in the second half, didn't he?
He took him off like an hour in.
He had to.
You seem to fall apart.
But no,
he went off.
I think he just.
To an extent, or am I completely wrong about that?
the depth that, like I said, the lack of depth in that area is staggering for us. Like, we brought on a guy that's largely played on the right for us, and we stuck him in the middle.
Yeah.
And the only
You said at the time he was in the wrong position.
the only time I've watched Will Smallbone play in the middle, like live, was when we were at the London Stadium in February, and again it had similar results.
But it makes the decision to sell Lemina and Harrison Reed all the more confusing now, doesn't it?
I think the Harrison Reed one is atrocious. Lemina, I think Ralph didn't necessarily have. I think he sounded out within his first 6 months, that half season where he took over. I think it was quite clear at that point Lemina was never in his plans. Harrison Reed, I'm shocked by, because I think with the season he had with Fulham, to then lose him as cheaply as we did, I think when really it would have taken offering him a new deal. I still think we're 2 players short in that area of the pitch. I don't think just signing Tom Davis will be enough. I've seen us linked with Ncham from Celtic. I think we need 2 in that area, not 1, because as you see at the minute, Romeu picks up a suspension. You're back down to just, let's say Tom Davis and then Ward-Prowse. So I still think, like you say, 2 players for every position. Realistically, we probably need a couple of central midfielders this summer. We needed 1 prior to losing Højbjerg. So
yeah.
What do you make of that game last week? Because I felt like it flattered Spurs massively. I felt like it was like.
I think this is something that I've become accustomed to as a Saints fan. I'm not talking about the heaviness of the scoreline. It's I think when I was watching the game first half, there was a lot of things that were quite pleasing. It's like Sean's point on Che Adams. I thought Che Adams did an absolutely superb job first half of pulling out, drawing out the defender with him. Also, when we were under a lot of pressure, you could get the ball up. Adams was holding the ball up, a touch, a turn. He was buying a few seconds and then getting a player like released on the other side of the pitch. Adams did a cracking job of that. Like I said, I think Romeu sort of marked his card really early doors with the booking anyway. I think just the way we played, we had the chances, and the issue that we have is you can see this over-reliance on Danny Ings in the sense of we don't take the chances when they're there. Every time Son went through, I knew he was going to score.
That was the difference, isn't it? Yeah.
But Danny Ings, you get a bit more of that kind of like you're off your seat. You're like, oh, mate, this is it. But we don't have another player like that, and I think that's an area where that stops us from sort of pulling away from that pack of teams that are always going to be sort of looking over their shoulder just in case.
I think another thing that we said
go on.
In the first half, every time you had so many chances in the first half. And
exactly.
A lot of the times, unless it fell to Ings, you didn't look like you was going to score.
And I think Adams is now kind of becoming guilty of the fact that he's having these amazing. But and you guys know I've always said this.
Yeah.
Adams I think is a tremendous footballer. I think he's a great footballer. He gets so much stick from Saints fans simply because he's a forward and he's not putting the ball in the back of the net. He needs that part of his game is. I still think he's at an age where you can coach that. Personally. But I just think that it needs to be.
You need to figure it out. He needs to figure it out. What does he do in front of goal? Yeah, he needs to figure it. I mean, some players did it. Some players. I remember Vardy. He couldn't hit a barn door at one point, and then all of a sudden he just clicked for him. He realised this is how you score goals.
I think that'll be Che Adams though. I think he's going to hit a point where he's once he gets it, he's going to be unstoppable. But
the problem with that is it's just the fact that he's not the man you rely on for goals. If Ings, God forbid, let's say Ings got an injury and he was out for a couple of weeks, I think if Che Adams was that leading man, he'd be turned into that player. Whereas last season and this season, he was sort of had the supporting role and he never got a chance to be that man on the end of everything. I think if he got that chance, maybe he could turn into that player. But I think while Ings is still there, and rightly so, because Ings is obviously the man to be there, until Ings actually either doesn't play a game or again, God forbid, gets an injury or anything like that, I don't think he's going to get the opportunity to.
Is this your way of walking round to the fact that you think Tottenham should be signing Ings as a backup to Kane or something?
Genuinely, I honestly didn't mean that by it, but I do honestly think that he needs a chance, sustainable chances in their team where he is that man. Whereas, unfortunately, now he's doing all the dog work and all the gritty stuff and drawing players out. If he was getting the balls in and being that end product man,
Yeah, but then at the same time, he got chances on the weekend and he didn't take them.
Yeah. Do you know what though? And he had chances against Palace, and there's just sometimes where luck needs to go for you as well. I remember I went up to Bramall Lane last year, and like again, similar time of year, quite early in the season, he did everything but put the ball in the net. But he hit the post, he hit the bar, he forced a brilliant save from the keeper. He just needs one of them to go in at some point, you know, like as well. I think the other thing regarding Sunday that I was going to touch on was that I think a lot was made of the fact, if you look at the manner of the goals we conceded and what a high line we persisted in playing, and I think this is where the whole...
Mourinho hang on.
This is where some of the central midfield issue comes in, because to me, if you... Sorry, give me 2 seconds. I think that when you're going to play a high line, and this is what we did so well at the after the sort of like lockdown period, if you're going to play a high line, your press has got to be spot on. When we come back from lockdown, our press was impeccable, and this is why we did so as well as we did.
Mourinho was picking that, by the way.
No, hang on a sec. Talking of that high line, I watched about a 5 or 10 minute clip of Gary Neville on Monday Night Football. He was talking about Spurs, and not just Spurs, but Southampton as well.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps talking about your high line, but he was saying that him and Michael Richards was on, and I really enjoyed listening to Michael Richards. I think he talks a lot of sense defensive-wise. They were saying that they showed, I think, in total 4 clips of your supposed high line, and they were saying it's not a high line, it's where they should be. It's just the problem was there was one player that was stepping out at the wrong time, or there was one player that wasn't following the line particularly. He was.
I'd hate to speculate which one of them that might have been.
I disagree.
One of them was Jack Stevens, admittedly, but another one it was someone else.
Beckenbauer himself.
No, but genuinely, I think everyone's talking about your high line. I don't think. Obviously,
no, I don't know. I think
you exploited that. I think you did exploit it.
Yeah. One we exploited. It did look high, right? But I think also Mourinho created it as well. I think he obviously sat down. I want to shift gears just a little bit and look at, there were 2 players that I couldn't see combining for Spurs. I just felt like they actually technically just lacked the quality to actually be there at that level, especially when you saw what Ndombele could do on the ball. But trying to see Winks and Davies try to combine on the ball, you know, the amount of times the passes, you know, you'd get the ball into Winks. He wouldn't either have the confidence or the skill. I don't know what it was. He wouldn't have the skill to maybe step past a player, open up the game. You saw what Ndombele could do, right? He took the ball, he skipped past a player, and then you open up the game, right? Because those players are now out of the game. Somebody else, you know, now somebody's got 2 people to mark. You know, with Højbjerg and Winks, you don't get that. But you know what really was extremely frustrating was watching Winks and Davies. You know, because they just technically, they actually didn't seem up to it from a technician's perspective, which you think is quite amazing because they're, you know, considered to be, you know, top players. So I thought that was very, very interesting. And that first half, because of that inability to hold the ball, I thought Southampton were all over Spurs.
I think the difference between, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think me and John was watching the game together, and we both didn't realise Winks was playing for part of it. I mean, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but he had not gone, I wouldn't say gone missing, but he just wasn't getting the ball, and it was hard to see him playing.
Weren't it like right at the start of the second half, like we said that to each other, like, wow, Winks is playing.
But the thing is as well, I think the difference between the first half and the second half was, in the second half, we put Lo Celso on, and I don't think Ndombele should have gone off. I thought he was our best player in the first half by a country mile.
I want to double click on that.
Obviously, we're hoping it's because of it was because of a knock in the game, which, you know, whatever happens now, it's forgotten because we won the game. But I think that Lo Celso bridged the gap between defence and going forward. He got the ball, let's be honest, he found Kane, and Kane just picked a wonder pass out to Son, and we were scoring goals, and it was happening, kept happening. He bridged that gap massively, whereas in the first half, Ndombele would go and win the ball, have to pass it to someone, and then find room himself, whereas Lo Celso wasn't winning that ball. He was given the ball with space.
I think as well, you're spot on as well, but it sort of comes back to what I said last week about that Thiago signing with Liverpool.
Yeah.
Remember that Liverpool Leeds game was so end to end because no one was taking the ball and just either making the right decision every time. And Lo Celso was doing that. And Lamela does it when he comes on. I keep banging about Lamela, but he slows the game down when it needs slowing down and speeds it up when it needs speeding up. So, because in the first half, the game was so end-to-end and it didn't suit us at all. Because Danny Ings and Che Adams were just running Dyer and...
It becomes a game of chance like
Sanchez.
that, right?
Exactly.
It becomes much more a game of chance, and your technical players don't get the chance. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the Spurs have gone from Luka Modric in that position to Dembele. You know, both are you can say technical geniuses, right?
Yeah.
And they play very different styles, but both of them just amazing on the ball. To Harry Winks and Sissoko, and it's kind of like, it's quite hard to take. I've got to say.
I think it's hard. I agree with you.
Before that, we had Carrick.
It's harsh on Harry Winks because I think he's a great player, but in the right game. I don't think that was his game. I think I genuinely think if you're playing a big team, you need someone like Winks that can get the ball. I think he'll calm things down. He'll make a pass. He'll always find your man.
I disagree. You know why? I think Winks, when he gets his foot on the ball, he gets. For example, if you put Winks in a corner, he can't seem to wriggle out of it like a very, very good player can.
Yeah. My trouble is with Winks is he's not. And I've been a massive fan of his, as you know. I think he's filled in gaps for us. But the more I see, I think especially under Mourinho, he doesn't fit the holding role because he's not strong enough and he doesn't get about the pitch enough and throw himself into challenges. That's not his fault. That's not his game. But then at the same time, I look at it and I think he's not creative enough to play in behind the striker as well. So you're sort of at a loss with him, if you know what I mean. There's nowhere there in the midfield that I think he personally fits. I think you're right, and Ndombele played brilliant on the weekend. Lo Celso can be that creative guy. Winks is sort of in between the two. He's not really doing either.
The problem for me is not necessarily that, though. The problem for me with Winks is that I just don't see the potential. Because you can live with that and say, okay, do you know what? This guy, he's playing like this now, but I can see him becoming a really, really good player later on down the line. Can you see him doing what Henderson did? I don't think so. I don't think he's got the potential. Not the world-class Henderson, the I'm a good leader Henderson. Can you see him do it? Do you think he's got that in his locker at Spurs with Harry Winks?
No, I think he's got the technical ability to, but he hasn't got the size and he hasn't got the system that suits it. That's what I think personally. But technically, I could be wrong. I think Henderson showed on the weekend. Technically, I think he's unbelievable.
Going from one Harry to another, can we just mention Harry Kane's passing for a minute? Because it was unbelievable in that game.
Like, in the second half. The
second half. But some of the passes, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like he put any of Son goals on a plate for him. Sonny, as we all know, can do what he did. But I just think some of the passing by Kane, I think there was one where he barely looked up once and just put, it was just... Yeah, I just wanted to mention it. I thought it was unbelievable.
Tottenham have got a few players that can make an average pass look great and a good pass look amazing. What I like about Harry Kane is that he shoots the ball around the pitch. It's the same technique all the time. It's just he knows. Yeah, I've got to say. But also there's a sort of strikers know how to put in that ball. They know where people want it.
They know how players want. But not a lot of strikers can actually put the ball in themselves.
Very true. Very true.
I mean, wouldn't you love to?
I just wanted to mention that just because I thought I had to.
No, that's fair. It's a valid point as well. I mean, if we're going to talk about individual performances, I was just going to ask, like, do you think? Wouldn't you love to have been a fly on the wall at half time when Ndombele was told he was coming off? Like, he's literally just sent Ward-Prowse and Romeo for a to set up the equaliser.
That's an interesting one.
I'm hoping there was a knock.
I remember sending you a message saying, this better not be tactical, right?
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
We never found out.
It clearly worked.
I don't think it was tactical. I think he would have also had a great second half as well. I think he played really well.
I thought he also come on and did brilliantly, as I said before.
Yeah, it's true, but I think it was you're going to get 45 minutes no matter what. If that's the case, then Mourinho's a genius, right? If he knew that this Lo Celso thing was going to cause 5 goals or 4 goals, then Mourinho, you're a genius. But
Ndombele's starting tonight for Spurs, so there you go. He's getting another chance.
I think he's going to start we're going to start seeing him more and more now.
Lo Celso?
No, Ndombele.
Oh right,
I hope so, because I think he's a great talent, man.
For me, if you're looking at those three midfielders, you'd have Højbjerg. The problem is there's no English players in there, but Højbjerg, Sitting, and Ndombele and Lo Celso just in front of him. That would be my favourite three.
I agree with you there. Yeah. Right. I think that's it for today, guys. Yes, we'll be back next week. If you follow us on our socials, on the Facebook page, Respect the Beers, YouTube page, Respect the Beers. And we'll be back next week talking probably more about transfers, because the transfer market seems to be heating up now. And we'll be talking about our 4 correct picks that we got this week with our £190 in our pocket. Impossible. Right. Cheers, guys. And I'll speak to you later.
Thanks, Shawnee.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Cheers.